Hello everybody, and welcome back to the ranch. I got some various ammo here in 1911. We'll talk about both of these. We're going to kind of do it separate. The first part of this is going to be kind of a history lesson on the ammunition for the 1911 and how the various types came apart, and the second part will be about this 1911 itself. We'll start off with when the 1911 was originally developed. It was originally developed for a 45 caliber ACP round. It took a 230 grain ball ammo. This one happens to be a 200 grain hollow point, and it stayed only available in that caliber until World War II, when the War Department went to Colt and asked them if they could modify this 45 to shoot a .22 long rifle. And what they did to do that was they changed the slide and developed a .22 caliber barrel and a magazine that would hold .22 caliber rounds. And the object behind that was, with the shortages of metals during the war effort, the .22 used much less of those precious metals than the 45 round did, and effectively what they were training on was how to function the pistol, not necessarily how to shoot a 45 caliber round. The 1911 then, and what eventually happened after that was they came out with the, after the war effort, they came out with the 1911, and they called the 1911 ACE, ACE, and the ACE was a dedicated .22 caliber 1911, but there's still a lot of those original 1911 conversion kits that are available, and they continue to make the conversion kit after the war also. Basically, those were the only two calibers that were available until the 30s, and during Prohibition, what happened was the government again went back to Colt. Because at that point most of the government law enforcement agencies had switched to the 1911 also. But one of the things they found as they were chasing liquor runners and gangsters at the time was that the 45 caliber ACP round was inadequate and would not penetrate the metal that the cars of the time were being made of. So effectively what it turned out, that everybody was driving around in a armored car per se. So they asked them to develop a new round, and what they came up with was the 38 Super. 38 Super is basically a 9mm Magnum round, if you will, but it's significantly hotter than the standard 9mm round. Now, the development of the 9mm round, this is the story I got from an old Colt guy, and the accuracy of it is what you're paying for it. But his story was that Colt decided to develop the 9mm 1911 in the 50s because what had happened was, with the Korean War effort, there was lots and lots of 9mm Luger ammunition that had been captured from the Germans available, and as the metals were becoming precious, and again, metals that you normally would use for gun rounds was becoming precious with that war effort that was going on, what they decided to do was utilize some of that captured ammunition. So they went back to Colt, asked them to develop a 9mm round, or 9mm caliber that would work in the 1911. And basically, other than changing the slide for the 9mm round, the slide itself didn't have to be changed, because it just happened that the 9mm round and the 38 Super round were the same dimension across the face of the shell casing, but they had to develop a new barrel, had to develop a new frame, because of the significantly shorter round required a different ramp angle to achieve that. So his story is that that's how the Colt 1911 and 9mm was originally brought up. Of course, it was at the time only available in government length. Then you basically fast forward through to the 80s when the Army was in the process of getting ready to not necessarily change away from the .45 caliber round, or not necessarily ready to change from the 1911 itself, but was wanting to go away from the .45 caliber round. And so that whole mid-80s, there was a whole lot of different pistol development as they went along, and came out with a number of different configurations. One of the rounds that Colt developed with the 1911 was the 10mm, 10mm auto round, which is a 40 caliber bullet, but significantly longer than the 40 Smith & Wesson. So they had developed the 10mm round. Sales of it were, pretty cold. They really weren't getting a lot of response. And then the Miami shootout happened, and that kind of changed people's attitude toward that 10mm round. At the same time, though, Smith & Wesson was working on their 40 Smith & Wesson round. So what ended up happening, though, was the 40 Smith & Wesson round ended up having a little more favor than the 10mm round. Which brings us to the 40 Smith & Wesson round, which as it became more and more popular, a lot of your custom gun companies started modifying the 1911 to take the 40 Smith & Wesson. The advantage with the 38 Super and the 9mm was they can use the same slide dimensions and as far as the breech face is concerned, and same thing with the 10mm and the 40 Smith & Wesson. They use the same breech face dimensions. Obviously, chamber size is different for all the rounds, but they had to do little modification to the slide itself, and then the frame itself just varied with the ramp angle depending on which caliber you were dealing with. Since then, there's only been in the last 4 or 5 years, there's been 2 other rounds that have come out. And I'll represent it with these empty cases because I don't have either one of them. But one round would be the 460 Roland, which is still a .45 caliber pistol, but or .45 caliber bullet, but case dimensions are a little different on that. Required a different barrel, and all of them that I've seen that are available are also compensated. The other one that has come out is the 50 caliber GI, and what they're doing with that is they're taking a .45 caliber casing and they're blowing it out to 50 caliber, but the head of the shell casing remains a .45 caliber shell casing head. And like I say, I don't have one of those either, so I don't know how either one of those function. I can't per se. So what you're left with is the story with this 1911. And what the story is with this 1911 is it fires absolutely none of these rounds that are on the table in front of us here. And where this fits into round development is right about in here between the 9mm and the 10mm. What this particular pistol is set up to fire is this right here. What this is 7.62 by 25. This is a Tokarev round, which, as most of you know, is a Russian round. It's fired in the Tokarev, the CZ52, and the PPS, which is a submachine gun pistol slash carbine. depending on how you want to look at it. It's basically a pistol with a long barrel, and it has a flip-over stock. So, how this became about is this is a Rock Island 9mm slide. That's on a 38 Super frame. I was able to buy this barrel from Numerich Gun Supply. It's a stainless steel barrel, chambered in 7.62 by 25, and it fit right into this slide. I took the frame and used some of the extra 1911 parts I had to build it up. I've got a wide spur hammer on this, and then most of the rest of it's just generic 1911 parts that I had extra laying around. It does have an extended safety on it, and it's got some Colt grips on it. I've not yet fired this because what I've run into is Numerich in their advertising says that it's just a simple barrel swap. You swap the barrel out of your 9mm or 38 Super, and you use 9mm or 38 Super magazines with this 7.62 by 25 round. The problem with that is the 7.62 by 25 round, as it comes from the factory, will not fit in a 38 Super mag, and it certainly will not fit in a 9mm mag. So what I'm going to have to do, and I've taken my measurements out, and I've kind of done some calculating on the powder, since it doesn't, since my load is not going to exist, but I'm going to have to take, and I'm going to start with one box, which would be 72 rounds of the 7.62 by 25, and I'm going to have to take them completely apart and then reload them. I've got my dies and everything now to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break these down into the case, the bullet, and the powder. I'm going to reduce the powder load slightly, and I'm going to set this bullet another 0.06 inches in, which should clear my magazine, and that's my plan right now. I may end up having to set it in a little bit further to make it function in the magazines, but that's going to be that's my plan for right now. And once I've got that changed, then I will take it out and test fire it. Head spacing is not an issue because this is a bottleneck cartridge, and it'll actually head space on the cartridge and not on the bullet itself. So the depth of the bullet's going to be irrelevant. It's just going to be a matter of getting my powder load down enough that I don't blow the thing up when I shoot it. Now, as for why this happens to fit in between this range, if we're going to take the story as fact that the 9mm was developed in the mid-50s or mid-50s, and we're going to accept that the 10mm round was developed in the mid-80s, this fits over here in the timeline right around the Vietnam War. And you say to yourself, well, during the Vietnam War, we weren't friends with the Russians. How did we end up chambering a gun for a Russian round? Well, we didn't. The Vietnamese did. What the Vietnamese would do is they would take a captured 1911, which fired 45 ACP. What they were doing and this is evidenced by the one that I've actually seen that was done this way, was they left the 45 barrel in place. They reamed it out as thin as they could make it, and then they took a 7.62 by 25 barrel and chamber and machined it down as small as they could make it, so that it would just basically fit inside the remains of the 45 caliber barrel. And then they would press the 7.62 barrel into the 45 caliber barrel. So what what you'd have evidence of is you'd have evidence of a rim around the outside edge here where the 7.62 barrel was actually placed inside the .45 caliber barrel. The other modification that they had to make, and I'm not going to do it on this one, and that's why I'm going to go with the shorter custom loaded round, is they had to machine from here to here, which is most of the main structure of the grip in the middle. They machined that down to where it is absolutely paper thin, and they did the same thing on the front strap. They machined the inside of it down to where it was absolutely paper thin. What that allowed them to do was that allowed them to use a Tokarev magazine in the magazine location of the 1911. Now, as for how reliable they were, I don't know. How many of them they did, I don't know. I've only seen one example of it, and that's why when I was pointed this barrel out, Texas Titans Yahoo.com had called me up and said, "Hey, have you seen this barrel for this, and what do you think?" And I said, "Well, I don't know, but the price is right, so I'll pick one up and give it a shot and see what we can do." Harley. So I got in contact with him after I got it and told him, well, it wouldn't work like they said it would work, but I can modify it to work. So I think he was a little disappointed. I don't know that he reloads. I know he's a gun guy, but I don't think he reloads. So I think he was a little disappointed because the big advantage with the 7.62 by 25 ammunition is it is about the same price as 22 long rifle, but yet it's not only is it a full power cartridge, but until the advent of 357 SIG, it was one of the most powerful handgun cartridges on the market. Harley, Tactical Harley's over there getting at it with toys again. Anyway, so we will keep you up to date on how it goes with this new pistol and its custom loaded ammunition, and if we get it to where we can shoot it reliably, then we'll shoot you a video of that and let you know how that goes. Anyway, hope you find this interesting. We'll talk to you later. You have a good day.